All right, Shalom. First and foremost, we're going to say Call, Halayim Law, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. They rule and teach well. Peace and salutations to hopeful elect that's spreading the truth out the four winds. This is your brother Shamar, or your brother Allah, Salakia. I'm coming back for edification of scriptures for the Israelites. All right, today's lesson is going to be on being a watchman. All right, we know that back in ancient times, a country would have walls and a watchtower. All right, and they'll put a man in the watchtower with a trumpet or some type of a loud noise to let the people know that the enemy is approaching. But we no longer do that. All right, the watchtower is going out to teach, all right, and spreading this truth. And that's also, and blowing the trumpet is preaching the truth. All right. So you no longer have to be in a watchtower. You can be in you can just go out and preach the truth. So this is the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2 and verse 1. I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. All right, so it says there's the prophet Habakkuk. All right, but we supposed to be in the spirit, the same spirit as Habakkuk. All right. Habakkuk talking about being on watch for the enemy. All right, and we on watch for the enemy. All right, as insiders. All right, you got people on the inside of these Illuminati and Aryan Brotherhood companies and facilities and stuff, and they are coming and telling the people. All right, they come and telling the earth what the Amalekites specifically are planning to do. All right, and that's us being on that watch. All right, and it's not just them insiders. All right, we also got prophecy. All right, these prophecies in this Bible, it'll tell you what's gonna happen. All right, it's gonna let you know, let you know what is gonna occur in the earth. For example, we know that you go to Isaiah 47 and 1, it says, the virgin daughter of Babylon is gonna be sitting in the dust. And then you go to Ezekiel 38, and they tell you that the Russians or Magog is gonna invade the United States and turn it to ashes with those nuclear bombs. All right. And it says, and the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. All right, so it says, write the vision. All right, so it says, that's how you get these scriptures. All right, because it say, who told Habakkuk to write the vision that he's about to receive? All right, the Heavenly Father. All right, the prophets had relationships and word and back and forth conversations with the Heavenly Father. All right, and we know in these last days that's gonna start occurring too. All right, because the Lord, he turned his back on us. All right, he sold us into captivity. All right, you don't have as much dialogue between humans and the Heavenly Father as there was back in those days. But there are certain special occasions when brothers and sisters will have these dreams, all right, about the mark of the beast, all right, about what the New World Order's soldiers is going to be doing to the women in those days, and how We gonna be saving the women with our spiritual powers. All right. But back on topic. It's the book of Ezekiel, chapter 3, verse 17. Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore hear the word at my mouth, and give them warning from me. All right, so it says, son of man. All right, that's talking to you, Israelite men. All right, the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Seminole Indian men. All right, it said, I made thee a watchman. All right, that's a job. The Most High had given you a job. All right, to speak, to push this truth. All right, because it's only, what does it say in Ezekiel 3? When you read this, all right, it might be 2. Let's check. So it said, this is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 3 and verse 2. So I opened my mouth, and he caused me to eat that roll. And he said unto me, son of man, cause thy belly to eat, and to fill thy bowels with this that I give thee. Then did I eat, and it was in my mouth as honey for sweetness. All right, it say that. It also say in these scriptures that it's gonna be sweet in your mouth at first with this truth. All right, the words of the Most High is gonna be sweetness. You're gonna feel good when you hear about you an Israelite and all this, but then it's gonna be bitter. All right, because you're gonna realize the type of death you gotta die and the things you gotta compromise. You gotta compromise your family members. All right, there ain't no more going to Christmas dinner with your family. No more Thanksgiving dinner. All right, your family gonna be labeling you some type of flipper or something like that. No, there ain't no going to game bang and do all this crazy shit. No, you gonna have to be a prophet. All right, you gonna have to eat healthy. You gonna have to push this truth even when it hurts to push it. All right, you gotta be separated from this earth. All right, the scriptures say, he that loveth mother and father more than me is not worthy of me. All right, so you got to put your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your aunts, your aunties, all of that, all right, to the side. There ain't no more going to get haircuts. All right, you going to have to start cutting your own hair, all right? We know in these last days, all right, we might have to run away from Esau. All right, so, and you don't want your hair getting caught in these trees and stuff like that, so you might want to learn how to cut your own hair. I also heard that the barbers, they be shaving they fucking penises, they pubic hair with the same clippers that they cut your hair with. All right, so that's sodomy right there. Don't be going to no barber shop, all right? You got money, you got a job, you get some type of income. Go buy some clippers that take a battery, man, and cut your own hair. Why you trying to look nice for? We living in slavery. We in slavery right now. All right? You don't see no brothers with freshly lined up hair and shit like that. No. There's humility and then honor. All right, you gotta be humiliated. No, that's the same spelling as humility. Humility. All right, to be humbled. All right, you gotta be humiliated and this time around, and then you receive that honor afterwards. All right, when Esau's kingdom fall and Jacob's kingdom is raised up. All right. All right, so it says, being a watchman, you got to get a warning from the Heavenly Father. All right, scriptures tell you that Most High is terrible. All right, his name used to be King of Terrors. Elishaja, King of Terrors. All right, the things you are afraid of, the things you think you'll never go through. All right, that's what the Most High put on you if you break these scriptures. All right, you break the law, statutes, commandments. Look at it. You might be in a better state, all right, than most people. Look around. You see these people hooked on heroin, cocaine, crack. All right, all these epidemics is from the Most High. Yeah, he using Esau to spread it, but that's because that's his left hand. All right, it's a balance. All right, so it says, when I say unto the wicked, thou shalt surely die, and thou givest him not warning, nor speakest to warn the wicked from his wicked way, to save his life, the same wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at thy hand. All right, so it says you're going to have to be killing people, man. All right, when you come into this truth, all right, you going to have to spread the truth. All right, and be prepared for people who not going to take the truth for you to have to take them out. All right, that's what it's all about. The elimination of the evil, man. All right, some people are just too evil and too fucked up to understand this truth. All right, and the Most High has blinded them for their sins in their past lives. So they'll never come into the fold and join the brotherhood and become one of the elect. Their portion is in this time around, all right, with Esau in charge. So this is a precept. This is the book of Isaiah chapter 62 and 6. I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold their peace day or night, yea, that make mention of the Lord Yahweh, keep not silence. So it says, I have set watchmen, all right? He has set armed men on your walls, O Jerusalem. We know Jerusalem is a people before a place. We know Jerusalem is a people before a place. All right. So everywhere Israel go, we got watchmen, armed men. All right. And we know that the watchtower is going out to preach this truth. And those watchmen are the prophets. And why did I say they are armed? All right, because they're going to receive that spiritual power when that day come to take out the enemies of Israel. All right, the 2/3, that's really who's going to be dying at the end of the world from these diseases and pestilences and Esau's sword and shit like that. It's going to be the 2/3. But the 1/3, we're going to live straight through it. All right, no problems whatsoever. You're going to live straight through it. All right, you should be already amassing silver and gold and some type of metals that are monetarily worth something. All right, that's what you're supposed to be doing right now. All right, even I came to the truth at 15, 16 years old. And one of the first things that the brothers showed me was to go get silver from these coin shops. All right, because it's going to be under the table trade for sure when that world ends. All right, you're not going to be able to go to Walmart and buy these, and buy food for you and your family no more. All right, you're going to have to go to the big homie of your neighborhood. All right, and you're going to have something, a woman, some metal, something. All right, something worth something. All right. Well, it says, O Jerusalem, I have put them watchmen upon thy walls. That's the prophets. All right, what do the watchmen do? He warn you of evil. And we telling you evil is coming. The day of evil is coming. All right, it's coming fast too. All right, we got Nero in office right now. All right, we can just imagine who's gonna be next. All right. Well, I'm gonna close it out. I'm gonna say, Kala am la Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah Ba'Shem Rakakadash Kwam Yasarala Wa Baba Ball. With that being said, Shalom.